disciples found themselves in a problem, in a challenge. They were facing lack. They were facing a scarcity where what they thought they needed, they did not have. And in facing that circumstance, that situation, they started to ask themselves some questions. The situation back in Matthew chapter 16 is that they forgot the bread. They're going to do the work, but they forgot bread. How are we going to make this journey? How are we going to move forward without the bread? And so they start grumbling to Jesus, what should we do? Because we don't have any bread. And Jesus says, why are you worried about bread? Weren't you with me when I fed the 5,000? Weren't you with me when I fed the 7,000? Haven't you seen me take a schoolboy's lunch and turn it into food for many? Why are you worrying about bread? That's a worldly perspective that you need and you don't have. And now we should grumble. Now we should complain. Now our emotions should be affected because we don't have what we think that we need. Because our expectations have not been met. Jesus says, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Disciples, learners of me, learners of Christ. Those who've given their lives to walking with me in fellowship. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think that I am? And the disciples said, well, some say to this, and some say to that, and a few others say to this over here. Who do you say that I am? One comes forward and says, well, you are the Son of God. You are indeed God himself. You're all the nature, all the character, all the scope of God. Christ says in Matthew chapter 16, verses 17 and 18, he says, Simon, son of Jonas, flesh and blood did not reveal that to you. That's spiritual understanding. That's spiritual insight. Who Christ is, that's spiritual. And he says, on that confession, I will now build my church. The first mention of a church is right there in that confession. When they found themselves not having their expectations met, it's Christ who says, I will provide for you in what you feel that you are lacking. I'll provide for you a community. I'll build a church upon your confession. Moves on from there and explains to them that it's in the church that we find our strength. It's a community of believers. Now, we talk about here again the significance of the church, the worth, the value of being a part of a church and what it means to be a part of a healthy church. Is there any value left in the church, in this culture, in this day and age, in this situation that I find myself in? And Jesus Christ says yes, so much so that I'll die for the church on the cross. I'll bring into being the cross by dying on the church, by dying for the church on the cross. That's why the church exists. I mean, if we don't think that church is important, if we don't see the value of being a part of a healthy church, we stand against everything that Christ died for. Because Christ died for us to have a healthy church. He died because he thought that there was a value in a healthy church. When we find ourselves